In this video, I'm going to answer some of the most common questions that I get when it comes to the Festool Track Saws. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Jason with Bent's Woodworking. I think initially the thing that interests people the most about Festool or sparks the most curiosity is a track saw. The question that I get a lot, and the question I've been getting a lot lately, is which one should they buy? People send me messages and they're like, hey, look, I'm thinking about getting a track saw. I don't know which one to get between the TS55 and the TS75. So today I'm going to answer a lot of those questions that I've been getting about the track saw specifically, whether it's the TS55 or the TS75. I'm also going to give my opinions on who I think or what I think each one is best for. And then I'm also going to share with you why I have both of them and what led me to get the 75 after I already purchased the 55. I completely understand buying a track saw, or most items from Festool for that matter, is an expensive purchase and it is an investment. Hopefully the information that I'm going to share with you today will help you determine which option is best for you and make sure that it's a good investment. The first track saw that I purchased was the TS55, and the TS55 is an awesome track saw and it worked great. And like I said, I bought this and then that kind of led me down the Festool rabbit hole. The TS55 has literally handled just about everything that I've thrown at it without any problem. And then one day we were in my shop working on some 8/4 walnut countertops. We ended up needing to cut a very, very long portion of these countertops, and so I grabbed my TS55. I'd like to make it clear, I've never changed the blade. The blade that comes in the TS55 is a fine finish blade, a very high tooth count, and so I tried to take a full pass on these walnut countertops. And as a result, the machine did struggle. Now, the simple solution would have been for me to make that cut in 2 passes, which I did on follow-on cuts. But even then with the 2 passes, I still felt like it was a little bit underpowered. And a big part of this is the blade. Because again, I've never changed the blade on it. It's always been the standard blade that comes with it. And so that was the day that I decided I wanted to get a TS75. Since having the TS75, I've used it on multiple projects that have very thick surfaces up to 8/4, and this has cut it absolutely no problem without having to make any extra passes. It's just 1 pass. I cut through it like it's nothing. Now, with that being said, the TS75 does have a more powerful motor. The TS75 also does come with a ripping blade with a lower tooth count, so therefore it is meant for specifically that reason. If you want to find out specific features on the track saw itself, I will go ahead and leave a video up in the corner now where I did an overview of my TS55 track saw, and it'll have a lot of information that will be very helpful, and it will also do some demonstrations of cuts and show you the quality of the cuts. Now real quick, I'll go ahead and kind of talk about what I use each one for. So now that I have both, my TS55 stays over at my MFT cart, and I only use it at my MFT cart. The reason I keep this at my MFT cart is because pretty much the only thing I ever cut on my MFT is 1-inch material or less, and 9 times out of 10, it's plywood. So now because of that, I never have to change the blade. I just put it on my track, I run it across my MFT, and it's good to go. My TS75, I now keep right here on this shelf next to my assembly table. Now, here's the great thing about the TS75, in my opinion. Now that I have the bigger saw at my assembly table, it's one of those instances where if I need to cut thick material, I have the tool to do it. If I still need to cut plywood at my assembly table or very thin material or crosscut or rip or anything, I can still use this saw, and the cut quality is this exact same as it is on this, in my opinion. And so now this is just kind of the thing that stays at my assembly table. I use this for everything, and when I'm operating on the MFT, it's my TS55. There's a ton of similarities between these things. They both accept the same hose sizes. They both change the blade the same. They're both adjustable speed. They both have multiple different blades. I think the TS75 actually has one more blade option because you can actually get a blade and use it to cut steel, as where the TS55 does not have that option. And mainly that's due because the motor is not quite as powerful. They both have the same bevel range. For the most part, the TS55 will actually go to -1 degree, but both of them go to 47 degrees. In terms of weight, obviously, as you can see, this one is smaller than the TS75. This one comes in just under 10 pounds, and this one comes in just under 14 pounds. Now, in my opinion, that's an important consideration because moving this around and using this one-handed is quite a bit easier when you're making multiple cuts than this one is. This one definitely has a little bit more heft to it. Obviously, as you can see, the base itself is substantially longer. And now with that being said, since the base itself is substantially longer on the TS75, keep in mind that you actually need a longer track length to make the same cut that you would on the TS55. And the reason that is because the larger footprint behind the cut, you want to make sure that you plunge the saw down prior to going into the wood, unless you're making a plunge cut and you have the stop set up and all of that, which is not what this video is for, but you just need that additional length on the track in order to do that. So another thing to keep in mind. Another thing that I get a lot of questions about is what is the cut capacity on these two saws? And so I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, right? The number that's associated with the saw is the cut depth. So a TS55 is 55 millimeter cut capacity in terms of depth. The TS75 is 75 millimeters in depth or cut capacity. 55 millimeters is the equivalent to roughly 2 1/8 inch, as where the 75 millimeter is equivalent to roughly 3 inches. Now you might be saying that's not a huge gap. You're right, it's not a huge gap, but there is another consideration you need to keep in mind. When you bevel this and want to do a mitered cut, this no longer has 2 1/8 cut capacity. This does have 2 1/8 cut capacity because the cut capacity when you do a miter cut on the TS75 is 55 millimeters, as where the TS55, when you're doing a 45-degree miter cut, you're only getting about 1 11/16 inch. So I bring that up because that is an important consideration, and that is how you can determine what the cut capacity is on each one of these track saws. Another common question I get is price. And so the TS55 comes in at $590. The TS75 comes in at $660. That is not a very large gap for the additional power that you get and capabilities out of the TS75 versus the 55. Here's the way I look at it. If you're willing to spend $590 on a track saw, spending an additional $70 to get the bigger, more powerful model may not be the worst thing in the world. One downside between the two, if you decide to go that route and you're somebody who really thinks that you want to start going cordless, there's not a cordless model of this at this time. I don't know if they have any plans on making a cordless model of the TS75. They do, however, have a cordless battery-operated TS55. Now, I've answered the majority of the questions that I get in this video from people asking about the two because they know that I have both. Who do I think each one is the best for? In my opinion, if you're somebody that's doing a lot of cabinetry-related stuff and you almost never cut anything over 1.5 inches, the TS55 and maybe an additional blade, like a ripping blade that you can break out every once in a while if you ever do have to cut anything very thick, that might be the one for you. But if you're somebody who doesn't just do cabinets and maybe you do a lot of stuff like live edge tables, slabs, thick material, 8/4, 12/4, so on and so forth, then I would probably recommend you get the TS75. If I could only have one of the two and I knew that I would never buy the second one, I would buy the TS75. And here's why. For that additional $70, you get the capacity of the TS75 and all the same features as the 55 plus some additional features. This is totally a personal opinion when it comes to the TS75. It kind of goes with something that I believe, and that's I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that happened to me when I bought the 55. And in all fairness, how many times have I done that task that I was doing since buying the TS75? None. I've never cut pieces that long that were 8/4. I've cut a lot of 8/4. They're always much smaller cuts. This thing handles it flawlessly. But at the same time, I was in that scenario where, you know what, if I would have just spent $70 more at the time, but who knows that when they're going into what becomes your primary tool line and you're buying your first tool from them, you don't really think about those things. You're just thinking about paying for it and getting that one item that you've had your eye on for a long time, and then you kind of learn things about it, and that's exactly what happened. I broke this out, went to go use it, wasn't quite what I needed, thought, you know what, I'm going to upgrade and get the TS75, and then now I can have something dedicated to my MFT and it's just there whenever I need it. I don't ever have to change the blade, and then I can use this at my assembly table for everything else that I need, and it never bogs down, never has a problem, and I'm really glad that I now have both. But if I had to pick one, and I would never get two, I would probably say get the TS75. This video is not a pitch to try to get you guys to purchase Festool. Those are just the track saws that I have. There are other great brands out on the market, but a lot of people ask me about the Festool line specifically, and since those are what I have, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I think I've answered just about everybody's questions that I get on a regular basis in regard to those two tools. Now, hopefully I've helped you make the decision, and now you can go spend all that money that's burning a hole in your pocket. As usual, everybody, I'm going to leave affiliate links down below in the description should you want to go find more information out about these tools and or purchase them for yourself. That is all I have for you this week. I really look forward to the next video, and until next time, get out in the shop, try something new, and I'll see you in the next video.